Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ॐ
ॐ
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ॐ
ॐ
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ॐ
ॐ
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila Chapter 1 Text 64 Mother Sutapa
Yes, Prabhu. হরে কৃষ্ণা। মহাপ্রভু জগন্নাথের উপল ভোগ দেখিয়া নিজ গৃহে জানে তিনের মিলিয়া।
Every day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to see the Upalabhog ceremony at the temple of Jagannath. And after seeing this, he used to go visit these three great personalities on his way to his own residence. Report. Upalabhog is a particular type of offering performed just behind the Garuda Stambha on a stone slab. That stone slab is called the Upal. All food is offered within the temple room just below the altar of Jagannath. This bhog, however, was offered on the stone slab within the vision of the public. Therefore, it is called Upalabhog. Text 65.
এই তিন মধ্যে যাবে থাকে যেই জন তারে আসি আপন মিলে প্রভুর নিয়ম।
If one of these three was not present, he would meet the others. That was his regular practice. Do you know who the three are? You remember?
हरिदास ठाकुर, रूप गोस्वामी and Sanatan.
Thank you. Yes.
টেক্সট 66 দৈবে আসি প্রভু যাবে ঊর্ধ্বেতে চাহিলা চালে গোঁজা তালপত্রে সেই শ্লোক পাইলা।
When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the residence of Srila Rupa Goswami, he accidentally saw the palm leaf on the roof, and thus he read the verse composed by him.
শ্লোক পড়ে আছে প্রভু আবিষ্ট হইয়া রূপ গোসাই আসি পরে দণ্ডবট হইয়া।
After reading the verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into an ecstatic mood. While he was in that state, Srila Rupa Goswami came and immediately fell down on the floor like a rod. Purport. The word danda means rod or pole. A rod or pole falls straight. Similarly, when one offers obeisances to his superior with all 8 angas or parts of the body, he performs what is called dandavat. Sometimes we only speak of dandavats, but actually do not fall down. In any case, dandavats means falling down like a rod before one's superior. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Shahpadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Before speaking, I'd like to get the blessings and permission of all devotees, and particularly those who are senior by age and or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. There's a couple of comments on this one. Srila Prabhupada makes this there's this one line in the purport. Sometimes we only speak of dandavats, but actually do not fall down. What do you make of that? What do you make of that sentence there? I would like to hear from others. Well, the Vindhyavali, you're smiling.
Prabhu, I always, sometimes I cannot do because of my health problems. So
Yes.
if that is the case, that is okay. I don't know whether it is okay or not in front of God. I do later on, when I'm comfortable to do in front of everybody. But that is the only weakness I have from myself. But I don't know about others.
I'm wondering what you make of sometimes we speak of dandavats, but actually do not fall down. What do you make of that sentence?
That's what I'm saying. For me, I want to do dandavat, not dandavat actually. That is not for ladies anyway. Is that right?
Where did you get that idea?
Because you say straight that dandavat is like a rod, like straight body. But that is not for ladies. I don't know.
Someone told you that. Who told you that?
In the temple, we never do that.
I know.
Ladies, of course.
And why is that? And why is that? Anyway, okay.
Seeing other people, I did it. That's all.
Yes, you're following what you've seen.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, it's I know that when Lord Caitanya was going through the 9 islands on his way to Chandkazi's house, there's a verse in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that says that old men, children, and ladies were offering dandavats to Lord Chaitanya. It's a special word. It said dandavats. So at that time, they were offering dandavats. And in the early days of the Hare Krishna movement, also the ladies used to do dandavats. But anyway, at some point, somebody said, and I don't know, I don't know that Srila Prabhupada said, but somebody said, hey, no, it's not good for ladies to do. So they don't do after that. But I don't know why that is. So that's why I was asking. But anyway, it seems to me, anybody else have a comment about this? Sometimes we only speak of dandavats, but do not actually fall down. Any comments on that?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
So, Prabhu, many people say Dandavat, but they don't offer it because probably they don't respect other devotee that much. They just verbally want to say, So normally it should be done, but we just... Yes. Right,
yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I agree with you that sometimes it seems like that statement there that Srila Prabhupada is making is slightly criticizing those who just say dandavat pranam, but never actually offer the dandavats. That's I agree with you there. So now, of course, it's become fashionable. We say Prabhu dandavat pranam, but then I just say that, but don't actually get down or fall down like that. I agree.
Quite fashionable. Many people say like that. And bending also, sometimes they just bend till the knee, that's it. Not more than that. They just touch the knee, they don't want to touch the feet even, sometimes. Like Indians, mostly you see the new age, people, they come and they just sip, they just fold their hand, and they touch rather than touching the feet, they will touch the knee and walk out, that's what they do. Yes. So and Mataji was saying about the panchanga, like pranam, for the ladies, they recommend nowadays about the panchanga, like the five parts to touch the ground, not 8. Like Ashtanga pranam and Panchanga pranam.
Yes, so and I know who the they. The question is who the they is. That's the question.
I have no idea where it started, when it started.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, so the takeaway from that point is that it seems that Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us not just to say dandavats in our words, but also as much as possible, and when may be possible because of invalidity or health problems, but it's whenever we can to actually offer our full dandavats to Lord Chaitanya, to Lord Jagannath, to Radha Shadi Bihari, and to the Vaishnavas, if we can. It's very better, it's purifying to our hearts to do that, and we get please Krishna by doing so. And at this point, I would like to. I sent out a question last week after we had a discussion about the restrictions in entering the Jagannath temple, because these persons, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and Haridas Thakur, they didn't enter into the temple because of the social situation at that time and at the temple. So I sent out some questions, and I thought we would talk. It's probably best to do it before, because then the next couple of verses are going to be on another topic. So perhaps we could talk a little bit about that. And so even to this day, as in Jagannath and other temples, there's restrictions about who can enter. So I had these 6 questions I asked. What are those restrictions? And what are those restrictions? What are they, or standards? What is the purpose of those standards or restrictions? What's the effect of those restrictions? What is the Vedic scriptural basis of the restrictions? And what was Gandhi's policy about those restrictions? What was Srila Prabhupada's view about Gandhi's policy? And does ISKCON have any restriction standards for people entering temples? And if certain restrictions standards are recommended, how might they be enforced or encouraged? So those were some questions I thought, because it'll apply not only back at the time of Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami, but some of it might apply today, and it's still being enforced by some temples, like in the Jagannath temple. So, question 1: do you have a good handle on what those restrictions are of who can enter the temple? I'm asking for input here.
Is one, if they're not Hindus, they cannot enter. Skin color.
You're asking. That means you didn't do your homework, right? Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean, Hindus are there, but I think that was the sign that was mentioned. Only Hindus only in the Jagannath temple. Didn't somebody say that last week?
Yes.
Yeah. Any others? Any other input on this? What I saw in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purposes in this area, he said that traditionally in the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras traditionally were allowed in the temple, whereas the Mlechas and Jabanas weren't. So there were Mlechas and Jabanas, which later were termed untouchables, generally weren't allowed in the temple, or at least in the traditional way. And so then, therefore, I sent out that link. To some of you saw, I sent a link about a law that was passed in India in 1939 or 1940, where they said, okay, all untouchables are allowed in the temple, although apparently that's not followed universally. But you saw that I sent that out? Yeah. So yeah, that was apparently the restriction, was not because of skin color necessarily, although sometimes people say that people of the lower caste or untouchables have a darker color or something like that. But that wasn't necessarily but it was their position within the Varnashram system. Mlechas and Jabanas are outside the Varnashram system, and means they're not following the Vedic principles. That's what makes them lechas and jabanas. Just like there's a kafi in Muslim and heathens and Christians, not following the principles of the Vedas or Varnashram institution. Does what anybody? So I was talking to different devotees, and they said that at Jagannath Temple they actually have an office. If there's any question about somebody, they'll bring them into an office and they'll interrogate them about their family lineage, who their gotra is, who their father, mother, all that stuff is, to make sure that they're part of one of those four varnas. Does that make sense? Okay.
We didn't know about this office. When we went, we got in trouble also. And this was a little while ago now, almost 20, 25 years ago. But they stop you at the gate and they argue and they fight. So the question of office never even came up.
Where did
Jagannath Temple.
Yeah, but what was the fight?
About not letting Raju go in. And
Why?
he was a baby. I mean, I think were questioning whether he was ours or not, and
Oh, whether he was not, they thought it was somebody else's baby.
Yeah, and he was year and a half, 2 years old, and no, not 4, 5 years old, and so it just broke out into a big fight. My father got into an argument, and so they never brought up an office. So this is the first time I'm hearing about the office being there.
Yeah, maybe that's when they really want to put you to get you the second degree or the third degree. So did you get it? Did he get in?
Yes, he did. And
How did it happen?
Just the gatekeeper, and actually, I think it was after we came out that they were fighting with us, and so it was just I think it had to be a fight, and
Yes.
and my father is not one to back off, and so it just escalated.
Okay. Not a pleasant experience.
I mean, it's always pleasant to go to a temple, see the deities, and so that part was fine. The end was, yes, not very. Especially at places where we go to see the deities, it is this kind of treatment just sours everything, and this happens in Tirupati also because of the crowd. I mean, it's not exactly the same reason why, but because they have to move so many people, they just treat the devotees very rough. And so some people will not, they'll argue and they'll fight, and it just messes everything up. Or, on one side you have the volunteers or the security people rushing you, and they're already affecting your mood. And then somebody like my father says, "Why are you doing this?" And they're very rough with the ladies, and it's just everything just gets.
It doesn't seem like a Vaikuntha atmosphere.
And I have to say, when you go into the sanctum, when you go inside and you forget everything, you see the deity, and somehow there is that power, and you forget everything for that half a second in Tirupati, and a little bit longer in Puri, and but yeah, it messes the mood up. But in the temple room, it is still very strong. At least that's how I feel.
Good. An interesting point is, our devotee here in Philadelphia, Sukada Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, apparently he knows the king of Puri.
Mm-hmm.
So when the king of Puri, he was educated in the U.S., and so he was visiting the U.S. at this particular time. So Sukada, when he was living in Cleveland, invited him to his house for dinner, prashadam. And so they talked about this issue of restrictions, who's allowed in and who's not. So according to the king of Puri, at that time when he was discussing, he said, well, these restrictions were really to keep the British out, because the British used to come into the the temples and take the money from the hundi and like this. That's what he said. What do you think about that?
I think I will believe that. Because the British they did plunder. They did take things unfairly. So
Yes.
sometimes
So that might have been a factor. Of course, it was already part of the practice, 400 years before, or 300 years before the British came. So that couldn't be the only reason. Because
yes, that is just taking care of the symptom. Sometimes we're just treating the symptoms and the actual, and they probably came up with that idea because there was something similar in place. So they just used that as a way to keep the British out.
Okay. So technically it was only Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras were let in. Those in the Varnashram system. So then what's the purpose of the restrictions? That's the next point.
When we went, myself and Vishnupriya and her husband, my husband, but they let 3 of us inside the Jagannath temple. Close to the deities we used to go and do the parikrama. And then they didn't allow her husband. He's from
because
here.
he was from
From here.
So so then the next point is, what would you say the purpose of the restrictions are? Why?
Like you said, Prabhu, when I asked, recently we had been to Pittsburgh. So it so happened I was curious, I was asking a senior priest there. So what is this? Sometimes, they don't allow this kind of people. He says, no, not like that, nothing like that. But only thing is, if anybody goes inside, they have valuable jewelry is there. And so like you're saying, Britishers' time, they must be saying that. And they said, we priests have to take, they all take the list of the things, jewelry, and we priests have to be very careful. If one thing is missing also, everybody has to answer that. So we had to be very careful who is going inside and who is coming outside.
Okay, so that's
what the
one explanation. Said. One explanation is that they're worried that the Madhya Jabana people will come and steal. Any other possible explanations of what the restrictions are? Why they're there? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. But Jagannath is settled in a very high altar. You cannot even reach. Very tall people can only reach up to his feet. Otherwise, he is seated in a very, let's say, about 5 feet, 6 feet height.
Yeah, that's very high. Very high.
So stealing jewelry is no question. When we circumambulate the main altar, you only can touch the
up to best side of
touch the feet of that stand. He is seated. They are all seated in a very, very high altar. High.
So then, if that's the case, what would you say is the purpose of the restrictions? If it would be difficult to steal, that's one question, that one issue that's possible. Any other issues that might be the cause of the restrictions?
Just I'm in my idea that other than Hindus, they don't care about the cleanliness, about the American the Javanas, and then they don't do the proper cleaning the way we do, the Hindus does. So I think that's the reason. Cleanliness is the main thing, not the stealing. I don't really. For Britishers, they can do it because they would go in group and they will they will forcefully take it out. But for the regular people, I don't think it's possible. It's not really possible.
Okay, Mother Jagannath Priya, you unmuted yourself for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a comment. Well, also in addition to the British, wasn't there concerns about Muslims in the past ravaging temples and all, so they wanted to protect against that. But I also read comments about not one. It shouldn't be a tourist attraction. It should be for devout Hindus and all going to see the temple, so preventing it for that reason, and also maybe not to rock the boat. It's been this way for so long. You don't want to upset the Hindus in the area. So those are some of them.
Oh, it's a traditional practice. Of course, those traditions have a source. Just like when Lord Krishna was speaking to Nanda Maharaj about the Indra Yajna, he said, are you doing this just out of tradition, or is it they're actually sanctioned in the Vedic literature? So that's part of the question. You're saying yes, it is traditional. Yeah. And go ahead.
It's fairly sanctioned though, yeah, but just what they're used to it for so many hundreds of years or whatever.
Yes. So at some point, certain things happen, and we just follow. We carry on. Just like at the end of a Nishinga prayers, we got to say, Nitai Gaur Haribol. And it'll go on for thousands of years because somebody did it. But the question is whether it's recommended in the Vedas somewhere.
Can I share something?
Please.
Yeah.
Oh, you're from Orissa, so you know about these things.
No, I know a little bit. Well, there are many aspects we see here. Is that why, from where this tradition has come, from where this restriction has come? Yeah, devotees have shared. It is true that to protect the devotees and to protect the deities and devotional atmosphere, because for so many times they have been attacked by Muslims and in many ways. Logically, it makes sense. Those are faith in Hindus, they should be able to attend. And logically, it makes sense that, yes, the rules and regulations should be according to time, place, circumstances. You have to revisit, and we cannot completely restrict this situation, but they will have their own challenges, how with thousands of people coming. And even though just now looks like basically you just go with skin color, because you cannot test, just like you cannot test the gene test for everybody. So you cannot test it. So basically many times they go with this with appearance and activities. The rules could have been revisited so that devotees could be allowed, because devotees also could be Hindu. But many times, a religion is accepted by birth also. It's very common everywhere. Born in Hindu means you're Hindu.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
More than I see is that there's also a lecture, not a lecture, a documentary on this by His Holiness Gaur Gobind Swami Maharaj. What did he learn from it? And what did we learn from our acharyas? How did they take it? There's two things. It was for the world, and we are talking about for ISKCON. Two different ways we are talking about. So for how did our acharyas accept this? Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swami Jagannath was personally there. Even the Rupa and Sanatana Goswami and Haridas Thakur has voluntarily accepted, no, we are not qualified because of the humility. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, Swami Jagannath was there. What did he sanction? That is, we can see. And Prabhupada also went through the same situation. What is the Prabhupada's reaction? And how did he accept eventually? What did he want it? I think those should be considered for us rather than demanding, am I eligible or am I not eligible? That's the point. Some of the things I wanted to say.
Sure. So what Lord Chaitanya did, what Srila Prabhupada, how he approached this issue are important for us to consider. Sure. So thank you. So I've heard so far three reasons for the restrictions. One was just tradition. Another was a question about stealing or terror, maybe perhaps terrorism of some kind, stealing or violence of some way. And the other was mentioned by Mother Nilambari was an issue of cleanliness. Perhaps there was cleanliness question. So I would suggest perhaps another issue might be, and I couldn't find any particular reference to the reason. I don't know if it's a Vedic requirement. I have no idea. But anyway, we know in the discharge of devotional service in the Nectar Devotion, chapter 5, there's a number of offenses to be avoided in the worship of the deities. I think there's 64 mentioned, isn't it? So those offenses, there's twofold reactions or results of those offenses. What makes it an offense? An offense means it's not pleasing to Krishna, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what makes it an offense. And so it's not pleasing to Krishna. And because it's not pleasing to Krishna, those who commit the offense may have some kind of suffering or problem they come up with, isn't it? If one commits an offense to Krishna or his devotees, then there'll be some bad reaction to you, isn't it? What would you say?
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
is that immediately? Not, it doesn't happen all the time, immediately all the time. Later,
It can be at any time. It's up to Krishna how he
anytime.
wants to do it. Yeah. But first thing is it's not pleasing to Krishna. As far as the four varnas being allowed in now, but not the others outside the varna, we know from the Shastra, Kalau Shudra Sambhava, that everybody's born Shudra in this age. Kalau, everybody's born Shudra, right? And sanskara, janmane jayati Shudra, sanskara bhave dvija. And by sanskara, somebody is elevated from a lower position to a dvija. Sanskara bhave, twice born. Veda, and by studying the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra, and someone who's knows Brahman or God, that's a Brahmana. Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. So these questions, if you know Brahmana, you know what a Brahma is, then you're a Brahmana, and then it's likely that you'd be more aware of those offenses to avoid, isn't it?
That's true.
So that might be, and this is, I don't know, but that might be one of the driving forces of these restrictions, because it does happen that, as Mother Nilambari says, if a lot of people come into the temple and they're doing things that are one of the items of being offensive to the deities, the atmosphere in the temple can be messed up, not conducive for remembering Krishna, isn't it? Mother Vindyavali, you were going to say something.
I have a question, Prabhu. See, you're talking about cleanliness and other things, like we're talking. I don't know whether ISKCON, whether they allow ladies all the time during the monthly, they have some problems. Even that they can't come to the temple.
Well, that's a question. Yes. Well, it's interesting. That question was asked to Srila Prabhupada. You know that?
That's what he's not there. I don't know. That is
Yeah.
his disciples, I can ask.
Yeah. This is in a book called Srila Prabhupada is Coming by Mother Mahamaya. Anyway, the background of the story is that devotees used to travel to Mayapur once a year for the Mayapur festival. And, they would come there, and Srila Prabhupada would usually give the class and would be there for darshan and the kirtan and all. So many, of course, lady devotees, but also Vaishnavis would be there. So sometimes during that, even though it was a short period, it would usually be a week in Mayapur, then a week in Vrindavan. During that period, they may have their monthly course. So they were unhappy because they had such a small opportunity, a brief opportunity to hear directly from Srila Prabhupada, and but at the same time, the Indian ladies and Vaishnavis were telling them that they can't go in the temple, and that way they'd miss hearing Srila Prabhupada's lectures. So Mother Mahamaya asked Hari Sari, who was Prabhupada's, this was 1976, was Prabhupada's servant at the time, what to do. So Prabhupada's solution was this. He said, they can come, but they have to wear silk saris. The silk is pure. That was his solution. Okay, makes sense. What do you think?
Sari doesn't matter. Body is the body.
And yeah, the mind is the mind, and the soul is Hare Krishna. Chanting the holy names are more powerful than all those things. Anyway, that was the. So what would you say about the point that I made about that being a possible source or factor involved in the restricting people from coming in the temple? What do you say?
See, that depends on cleanliness also, that's why they don't.
Yeah, I'm asking everybody here. Krishna Kirtan, what do you think?
Well, all the rules and regulations are meant for serve Krishna.
Remember Krishna, yes.
But not necessarily. In this world we live, as one is devotees, the other one is karmis. We will find this kind of distinction, discrimination. We will find it, but how we as a devotee should accept, embrace this, and that's what I think.
Okay. So is it possible that might be these being unaware or violating these offenses might be a factor involved in restricting others from coming in the temple?
Yeah, right. Because we mentioned about Gandhi also. The Brahmins, they restricted the lower caste people, religion, or unclean, because unclean is invented, and Gandhi made everybody's welcome. What is happening now? When people enter the temple, or they think by touching the deity is the great achievement. They think, if I touch the deity, that's I've been blessed and I've been qualified, and everyone should have a right to touch the deity. Well, just making the rules and rejecting the rules and regulations for the sake of not accepting completely. At the same time, just making the strong rules and regulations without considering its purpose, both way has dangerous. So
Niyamagraha.
Niyamagraha.
Yeah. So what was Srila Prabhupada's vision of the calling people Harijan?
Right. Just stamping people as Harijan doesn't make one qualified.
Yeah, so the point is to change their behavior, to change their cleanliness level and their behavior. And so as I did a search of Harijan in the database, I didn't find any comment that Srila Prabhupada made specifically about mlechas and jabanas entering the temple, but he did find error with Gandhi for just saying people are Harijan, which means a person of God, of Hari, without improving their standard of behavior. That he criticized. You follow?
Yeah,
So
exactly. I think that is education is lacking in the society.
yes. So it didn't say that Srila Prabhupada didn't say, well, yes, the Harijan should be led in the temple, or no, he doesn't say that. But he said that to become a Harijan, you have to improve your behavior and be actually a servant of Hari. So then what does ISKCON do? Do we have restrictions to enter the temple?
We don't. Everybody can come in.
Okay, so clean or dirty,
No, yeah.
intoxicated or not, wash your hands after prasadam and fans your mouth after prasadam. Doesn't matter, right? You can just do anybody.
No.
What's that? Somebody was saying no.
Lot of time I found the person who entered in the temple gate, through the gate, he was so stinky. Sometimes they are drunk.
You said intoxication. No, that's not allowed.
Not only smell of drinks, but it's
Yes.
alcohol, but it is the cleanliness. Their body is so stinky that you will feel very bad. So the ISKCON
Well,
allows
you're not only you. What about Krishna? Krishna's senses are quite sensitive, isn't it?
Yeah, Krishna.
He loves beautiful fragrance. He loves beautiful flowers.
Yeah, and therefore we say
So how can
cleanliness.
we do like that?
Cleanliness is next to
How can
godliness.
we go like
And one of the offenses in deity worship, in case you probably know, is to offer a flower that has no scent. Do you know that?
That's true.
Offering a flower that has no scent. And unfortunately, most of the flowers that we offer have no scent. You know that? Actually,
in Mayapur also, Prabhu, in Mayapur also, they hardly can get the garlands they offer, main garlands they offer. They don't have the fragrance, but sometimes they offer the fragrant flowers to the deities separately. That is not the main garland. Then maybe mogra, maybe jasmine. Sometimes they get it and they offer. Otherwise, the main garlands of all the deities, they don't have any fragrance.
Okay. So
usually we don't offer marigold or other things to God. Krishna.
Why no marigold? What's wrong? Marigolds have a scent.
We don't do.
You know what happened
with
carnations? Carnations have a scent, but because at least what I read was that some people say that because the carnations were associated with funerals, because they usually would buy carnations as a decorations for funerals, they bred the scent out of the carnations so that people wouldn't remember funerals. That's what some people say that. So anyway, so the point. Go ahead.
But are you asking two different questions here? So as devotees, we wouldn't, at least we will try not to go into the temple when we are stinking with, and not offer flowers. But are you talking about as a rule from ISKCON, do we not allow people to come in? We don't stand at the gate and say you are not allowed because of these reasons. Aren't those two different things that we're talking about?
Well, they're related. They're very related, but sure. And if you go to Mayapur, they have guards at every entrance of the temple, and they're checking. But what are they checking? Making sure nobody has any weapons to come in usually. So we have some restrictions. So devotees coming. Sometimes it happens that a person does, for example, might wear very revealing clothing. Have you ever had this happen?
Yeah.
And so somebody, it happened during Srila Prabhupada's time also, that sometimes a person came, in this case a woman, was wearing very revealing clothing and dancing in a very licentious way. So the devotees took her aside and gave her something appropriate to wear.
That's
That happens. That happens. Balabhadra, I asked Balabhadra about this issue, Balabhadra Prabhu, and he said that one time he put a sign outside the entrance to the temple, and in Atlanta, when he was the temple president, it says, "Please don't enter if you're intoxicated. Wear appropriate clothing, please." And a few other things, but those things. Because I don't know if you've been to the temple in Atlanta, but it's in an area where sometimes bums would congregate, and for a long time they were getting lots of bums on Sunday with that had a bad odor, and that would drive the people out. So he put the sign up. He said that Sri Dayananda Maharaj came there and said, "You have to take that sign down." No, we don't restrict at all. Anyway, so they took the sign down. But so the question is, how are these? If we do have any restrictions, how are they implemented or enforced or not? So I thought probably it would be a good idea if we have time to read through the 64 offenses of deity worship. If we have, can we get that on the screen? Just as a reminder, some of these will be something that, for example, one of the offenses of deity worship is it says not to come into the temple if you smoke ganja or marijuana. That's one of the offenses, right? Ganja. I didn't know that ganja and marijuana were slightly different. I didn't know that. You know that? Ganja is technically the flowers, and marijuana is anything, the flowers, the leaves, the seeds, everything. Anyway, that's so not to go in the temple. If one should not smoke ganja or marijuana. So do you have access to those 64 items, offenses? Chapter 5, Nectar Devotion. Prananath, are you in charge? Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, chapter 8. Could you read these? Start off, Prananath Prabhu?
Sure, Prabhu. Yeah.
And we'll go through maybe half of the, maybe 16 or so, and then I'll stop for questions, okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. So, yeah. Offenses to be avoided. In the supplementary Vedic literature, there is the following list of 32 offenses in the matter of serving the Lord. 1 should not enter the temple of the deity in a car or palanquin or with shoes on the feet. 1 should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Janmashtami and Rath Yatra. 1 should not avoid bowing down before the deity. 1 should not enter the temple to worship the Lord without having washed one's hands and feet after eating. 1 should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. According to Vedic scripture, if someone dies in the family, the whole family becomes contaminated for some time, according to its status. For example, if the family is Brahmana, their contamination period is 12 days. For the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, it is 15 days, and for Shudras, 30 days. 1 should not bow down on one hand. 1 should not circumambulate in front of Sri Krishna. The process of circumambulating the temple is that 1 should begin circumambulating from the deity's right hand side of the temple and come round. Such circumambulation should be performed outside the temple structure at least 3 times daily. One should not spread his legs before the deity. One should not sit before the deity holding the ankles, elbows, or knees with one's hands. One should not lie down before the deity of Krishna.
Okay, let's interrupt there. And are there anybody have any questions?
As I was reading, I did have a question.
Yeah, sure.
This came up once or twice before. When there is, a family member or somebody leaves the body, are you allowed to do deity seva? Here it says one should not. Where was that? We read about someone dies in the family.
One should not enter the temple in a contaminated state, according to Vedic scriptures. Yeah. And it says for 10 days, right? And if, for example, if the family is Brahmana, how do you understand this? If the family is Brahmana, their contamination period is 12 days. Yes. So it seems like it's according to the Varna, right?
Yeah. Seems
the Varna.
that way. Yeah.
Yes. So this was discussed a little bit with, I discussed this with when devotee was there, and what's his name? The person who used to be the deity worship minister? Jayananda. Yeah, Jayananda Prabhu. So he sent me quotes. Apparently, this will apply to people who are not fully engaged in devotional service, or those who are fully engaged in devotional service. That contaminated state is observed, but those who are like temple pujaris and are fully engaged like that, they won't need to observe that ashocha period. In fact, that's also true in observing the Shrad ceremony of Vaishnavas. And usually, it might be 11 days or 15 days after. But for those who are Vaishnavas, any sometimes 3 days afterwards, or any number of days afterwards, and there's no ashocha period at all for those who are fully engaged in devotional service. So that means that one can continue to offer the deities, but if one is fully engaged in devotional service. Other questions?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Vishnugada Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Thank you for explaining that. That recently had come up, so that was very helpful for that reference. Offering obeisances on one hand.
What's that about?
Well, sometimes people are chanting japa and they come in and offer obeisances. So they don't want to put their japa bag on the ground, so they kind of lift their hand up and offer obeisances on one hand. What would you recommend in a situation like that?
Well, yeah, it is. It's one of those offenses. So I asked Jayananda Prabhu about that, and he said the obeisances with hands, the two hands, it's actually, we're supposed to be thinking that those two hands are touching the 2 feet of the deities of Krishna. So touching 1 foot wouldn't be is not appropriate. That's what he said. So I would recommend that take a pause. We're dealing with Krishna here. We're dealing with Krishna or the spiritual master, and take care to really remember what you're doing when you offer the obeisances. It's not just a pro forma thing, but trying to approach with humility and actually touch the feet, at least in mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that does. So I guess To remove your bead bag and place it on a
Yes.
table, offer obeisances, then
Something, yeah. Put it in your
resume fasting
pocket.
with the holy names.
Put it in your pocket or some other place. Yeah, put it behind you. Something. Yeah.
Oh, Haribol Prabhu.
Yeah.
I have one question. You say one should not talk loudly in front of the deities, but in many temples I witnessed, I've observed the devotee will just have a whole conversation about, it's not about Krishna Katha, but about different,
Yeah,
what's going on.
that's something that I did we get to that already? I didn't see that. I didn't
No,
think
not yet.
we didn't get to that one yet. Well, but thank you for bringing
No,
that
one
up.
should not talk loudly,
Yeah,
it's
it's
already
there.
come.
Yeah. So one should, we'll see. One of the things later is one should not talk to others, not to others in front of the deities. It's also there. So I mean that's something that was in the early days of ISKCON was very rigidly observed, and now we don't observe it as carefully as we probably should. But the idea behind that is to have the deity room should be a sacred place where remembering Lord Krishna is facilitated. And when there's different conversations going on here or there, I mean, it's one thing if it's about service, that's okay. If service, if the conversation is about service, okay. But even so, it should be done in a way that's respectful to the meditation or the devotional activities of others, so it doesn't kind of distract from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but how do we implement it and tell all the devotees? They get offended sometimes if you tell them,
Yes. So then we become an offender, right? Yeah. So that was good. That was one of the questions we had at the end. How are those? So the one way that the people in the Jagannath temple enforced that, or at least could have been one of the factors in enforcing that, is just don't let people in who don't follow these things. Or at least they should know those things. But the other point is, it's some of these things are personal. We're not going to know them. So part of it is education, and I mean a large part of it is education. People, we're reviewing it now just so we can remind ourselves. Because I forget about it too. What we're supposed to do. So educating persons. That's part of our mission, is to educate people how to interact with, how to do devotional service for Krishna. And of course, it's different for a brand new person. Srila Prabhupada said once, if I told you all the rules and regulations, you'd faint. Well, here they are. So a new person is going to faint. So along the way, at a certain point, there has to be, education about these things to help us make further progress. So they're not necessarily hard and fast rules in all cases. Hard and fast means, what's problematic and at a later stage may not be as problematic in an earlier stage. So, yeah, I know the first time I went to India, I thought in 1975, I thought, wow, India is going to be like the perfected place where everybody's Krishna conscious, and I had that idea. And then one thing that was so shocking to me was that in the people would come in the temple and everybody's blabbing, talking. It's incredible. I couldn't. Which was quite a contrast to the Hare Krishna temples in the United States, where at that time anyway, we didn't talk. If you wanted to talk something, okay, you went outside the temple. That's okay. But or if it was about devotional service, you may say it in a whispered tone. That, of course, I'm not trying to criticize anybody or particularly, but the point is to have a sanctified atmosphere in the temple that facilitates remembering Krishna, focusing on the service of Krishna, either by chanting or by his meditating on his form, hearing his pastimes like that. Other questions about these 10? How about circumambulating in front of the deities? What about that?
That is also. Usually I know it's in India they don't do inside the temple, outside temple only they do.
Yeah, I mean in Philadelphia, there was a big, when we did the construction, it was important that they had some area to circumambulate, but that hallway that goes around in the deity area, but for whatever reason it's not available so much for actually circumambulation. But that was the point of that part. But you can always go around the temple, around the temple building, no problem. That's always.
And one more thing I found, Prabhu, people usually they don't know, there might be new people. They come and spread their legs towards deities.
Yes.
So once or twice I just got up and I just told them, but they did. They cannot sit on the floor that long. That's why.
Yes, and that's why they have
I said,
those.
go and sit on the chair. It's okay.
Yes, that's why they have the chairs, which is so people aren't
that is one
to.
more thing. And dresses also. Sometimes people are not coming in proper dress.
So my mother Shobarati said, we don't want to have people accosted and say, "Get out of there, you're not wearing the front." But to be able to, educate people and at the same time not turn them away because of these rules and regulations.
I'm just wondering whether the Christian church, do they have a dress code when they go for the for the meeting, like for the congregation prayer?
I'm sure some of them do and some of them don't. I'm sure some of them do, some of them don't. So it's Jayadvaita Swami, who's quite a stickler. He recommended, when I talked to him about many of these things, and he said he didn't recommend people coming in t-shirts like, you have t-shirts of, let's say, Budweiser. You come into the temple and you got a Budweiser t-shirt on. I mean, it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and you're advertising Budweiser. Okay. So he was not supporting of that, But are you going to stop somebody from coming in? You're not going to stop somebody, but at the same time, these are recommendations for people to take under advisement. Even he said that even things like, Eagles t-shirt, an Eagles t-shirt. He said that's probably not a great thing to do, which the kids are going to have a trouble with that. But anyway.
Some of the things, telling them it is very inconvenient.
So that's,
if we have some signs, it might help. But you say that we're not supposed to do the signs.
I didn't say we're not supposed to. I just said what happened with Balabhadra Prabhu.
Yeah.
Balabhadra had a sign. You may certain things you may want to encourage. And these, you're not going to have. I doubt if ISKCON, and that's up to the administration how they do it. But in ISKCON, you're not going to have anybody enforce them, or an enforcer probably. I mean, sometimes during the class at the temple, in Philadelphia, there's a lot of noise going out in the hallway. Does that happen?
Yeah.
So so then I have been known to come out and ask people to quiet down because it distracts from the people hearing. That's but one should be aware of those kinds of things. Anyway,
Muslims have their own, when they go into the Gurudwara or somewhere, they do Gurudwara, actually I saw. They cover their head. They will go inside. So that they have their own rules, when we go, people should know, not telling them. When you go to the temple is a special thing. We should be doing behavior and then well dressed and other things.
This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. There should be a certain elevated level of respect.
Yeah.
Although people in the beginning may not be as aware of that, and it's part of our job is to help them come to that level. So anyway, we went through some of these, and I know that there's a Nectar Devotion class on Thursday at the temple. But anyway, we can, because the topic we were discussing was why were people restricted, like Sanatan Goswami, Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami, from going in the temple. My contention was it's likely that some of these things, because people didn't follow these, especially those who were outside of the Vedic culture, that may have been a factor in keeping them out. So the same thing goes on now, but we have a different approach. But at the same time, sanskara bhavedvija. Sanskara means training. Training means we gotta teach people. So here we are. So I propose that we finish off we read the rest of them next time or not. What do you think? Too much?
Yes. Next
Too
time.
much? It takes time, I know. Anyway, it's kind of fun.
Next time I said, Prabhu, not
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. So it's already 9:02. I mean, and then you have to. There's other stuff to do. But anyway, I just wanted to. I wanted to start a conversation about this because we were on that issue came up, and it was a little different today. It was just a lecture. You know, getting people's input on this issue is helpful for me. Thank
Many
you.
of times people will have education, but not samskara.
A part of
So
samskara is
they
education.
need to have both actually,
Yes.
along with education. Samskara also they need to learn.
Okay.
That's what
Hare
I'm
Krishna.
Yes.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted to say one thing.
Oh, okay, great. Mother
Yeah,
Muktidata, is that
like
you?
about the fragment of the flower, like whatever flower don't have pregnant, we should not offer to Krishna, right? So Mataji was
Don't.
saying he don't use the marigold, and I choose that marigold flower is the best to worship because we always have like the rose and other flowers. It's just one time they come and goes, but the marigold is coming like
Longer.
every day, yeah, a lot. So I choose that for my garden, every
Yes,
year.
I agree that marigolds can be offered and they do have a scent. Mostly marigolds do. It's not it's not a wonderful scent, but there is a scent there.
Yeah,
So
but what I do every day, Prabhu, like I spray some rose water
yes,
on
yes,
every
yes,
That we can do.
Yeah.
yes.
So every time I use flower, I spray some rose water every day.
One can do that. Yes, take some either rose water, gardenia oil, all these things can be sprayed on the flowers if they don't have a scent. That's our kind of adjustment during the Kali Yuga. There are yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha
Sarvasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavane Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.